Captain Elias Ward adjusted the straps of his helmet as the dropship descended through the hazy atmosphere of Zithera Prime. The planet's surface stretched endlessly below, jagged cliffs of violet rock, rivers of glowing blue liquid, and dense forest that seemed to shift as if alive. Elias had seen countless alien worlds before, but something about this one felt different, dangerous. "Approaching drop zone, Captain," said Lieutenant Mara Kess, her voice calm but tense through the comm system. "Sensors are picking up large life forms ahead. Hostile, we think." Elias nodded without looking away from the viewport. "Stay sharp. Keep formation. Remember, we're here to scout, not fight, unless they force our hand." The dropship touched down with a low thrum. Dust swirled around the landing struts, making the trees quiver. Elias and his four-person reconnaissance team exited quickly, rifles in hand, scanning the surrounding forest. The forest was eerily quiet, but the ground shook slightly beneath their boots. Then, without warning, the Zarathi emerged. Tall insectoid creatures with chitinous armor and glowing red eyes, they moved with terrifying speed. Their limbs ended in sharp claws and their mandibles clicked in a way that made Elias's stomach tighten. He had heard stories from other reconnaissance teams, most hadn't returned. "Contact. Open fire," he barked. The team's weapons roared, firing energy rounds that struck the Zarathi with sparks and smoke. The creatures screeched in a sound like grinding metal and charged forward. Elias ducked behind a fallen tree as one of the Zarathi lunged at him. He fired a quick burst, but the creature barely flinched before it was thrown back by an explosion from Mara's grenade launcher. Then, amidst the chaos, Elias saw something that made him freeze. A tiny Zarathi hatchling no bigger than a human child was trapped under a fallen tree branch. Its legs flailed helplessly. The hatchling's eyes, large and luminescent, met Elias's gaze. Without thinking, Elias sprinted toward it. "Get back!" Mara shouted, but he ignored her. He lifted the heavy branch with a grunt and grabbed the hatchling. Its tiny claws scratched at his arms, but he held it gently. The creature let out a soft, almost plaintive chirp. Elias's heart pounded. He knew he was risking everything, his life, his team's safety, but he couldn't leave it there. A Zarathi warrior turned toward him, mandibles snapping. Elias fired his rifle, but he knew it wouldn't be enough. More Zarathi were closing in. He pulled the hatchling close and ran, zigzagging through the trees. "Captain, retreat!" Mara shouted. "We can't hold them off." Elias kept running, diving over roots and rocks until he reached the extraction point. The dropship's ramp lowered and his team pulled him aboard. He tossed the hatchling onto the floor gently, keeping a hand on it. The ramp lifted and the dropship lifted off. Below, the forest was still alive with the sounds of the Zarathi searching for their lost child. Inside the cabin, the hatchling curled up in a small ball. Its breathing was rapid but steady. Elias knelt beside it, watching. Despite its alien appearance, it reminded him of a scared child, a helpless being he had chosen to protect. "Captain, what are you thinking?" Mara asked, her voice a mix of worry and disbelief. This is a Zarathi. They're our enemies." Elias looked at the hatchling, its tiny eyes blinking slowly. "Maybe. They're not all enemies," he said quietly. "Not every life has to be destroyed just because it's on the other side." Mara shook her head. "You could have gotten yourself killed, or worse, all of us." "Command is going to be furious." Elias didn't respond. He held the hatchling close, feeling a strange warmth from its tiny body. He could sense something almost like intelligence, even at this early stage of life. Something curious and maybe grateful. The trip back to their orbital station was tense. The crew was silent, eyes flicking nervously between Elias and the hatchling. Elias could feel their judgment, but he didn't care. He had made his choice. He had protected a life, even if it was the life of their sworn enemy. Once aboard the station, Elias was summoned to Command HQ. His steps were heavy as he walked through sterile corridors. Commander Rhea Voss, a stern woman with sharp features and eyes that missed nothing, waited for him. "Captain Ward," she said, voice cold but controlled. "I've received the reports. Explain why you risked your team and disobeyed orders to save that." She gestured vaguely toward the hatchling, which had been placed in a secure containment unit. Elias squared his shoulders. "Commander, I saw a life in danger. I did what I had to do. The hatchling is defenseless. I couldn't leave it to die." Rhea's eyes narrowed. "You realize the implications of this, don't you? The Zarathi are not like us. They have a hive mind, and their queen will know. Eventually, Saving one of them could be seen as an act of war, or an act of treason. Elias met her gaze. I understand the risks. But I also understand this. We don't have to be monsters just because they are. Maybe showing mercy can be our strength. The commander sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. Your logic is human logic, Captain. But remember, the galaxy doesn't operate on human ideals. It operates on survival. Elias didn't argue. He left the room, his mind troubled. He kept thinking about the hatchling, how small it was, how vulnerable, and how its life now depended entirely on him. That night in his quarters, Elias had dreams. Strange dreams of a luminous figure, towering and elegant with countless eyes that seemed to see everything. He felt a presence, an intelligence far beyond human comprehension, watching him. He woke with a start, sweat on his brow. The hatchling chirped softly in its containment pod. Elias stared at it, feeling a connection he didn't understand. Somehow saving it had bound their fates together. Somehow this small act of mercy might change everything. Days passed and the hatchling began to respond to Elias. It chirped when he approached, and seemed to recognize his voice. Scientists aboard the station studied it, amazed by its rapid learning ability and unusual behavior. They called it XY for short. Elias spent hours with XY, teaching it simple gestures and sounds. Despite its alien nature, he found a strange comfort in their bond. But a shadow lingered in his mind. The sense that the Zarathi queen was aware, that she had noticed the one thing Elias had done that defied expectation, protect her offspring, and he was right to feel uneasy. Across the stars, deep within the Zarathi hive on Zithera Prime, the queen sensed a disturbance. Her child, her precious hatchling, was alive, and the one responsible was a human. For the first time in her long reign, the queen felt something new. Curiosity mixed with a cold, unwavering resolve. The human had acted against all known laws of the Zarathi. That act would not go unnoticed. Elias didn't know it yet. But the choice he made, an instinct to protect rather than destroy, had set in motion events that would challenge the very balance of power in the galaxy. And from this moment forward, his life and the life of the hatchling would be linked in ways he could never imagine. Weeks had passed since Captain Elias Ward saved the Zarathi hatchling. Though the universe around him continued in its usual rhythm of starships and distant suns, Elias felt a growing tension gnawing at the edges of his mind. Every glance at the containment pod reminded him of the choice he had made and the consequences that might follow. See, the hatchling had grown slightly since their arrival on the orbital station. Its body was now stronger, its glowing eyes sharper, and its movements more deliberate. Elias watched as it mimicked his gestures, tilted its head when he spoke, and chirped in response to his voice. Despite the alien differences, he felt a bond forming. It was unsettling, yet comforting. "Captain," Lieutenant Marquez called one morning, breaking his quiet observation. "Command wants you on the main deck. There's been a transmission from deep space. They say it's encoded in a way that seems directed at you personally." Elias frowned. "Directed at me? How is that possible?" Mara shook her head. "I don't know, but Command insists you see it." In the briefing room, the holographic display flickered to life. Streams of alien symbols danced across the air, moving in patterns no human coder had ever seen. At first, the message seemed random, chaotic. Then, to Elias's growing shock, he realized that certain sequences responded to his presence, almost like the symbols recognized him. "Captain Ward," Commander Riavos said gravely, "we don't understand it fully, but this transmission seems aware, almost intelligent, and it's coming from Zithera Prime." Elias' stomach tightened. He had suspected that the Zarathi queen might notice the hatchling's disappearance, but this was far beyond his expectations. The messages pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, tugging at the edges of his consciousness. A voice, silent yet unmistakable, reached him. "You have taken what belongs to us, prepare." The words echoed in his mind like a warning, but Elias held his ground. "I saved a life." "That's all?" Mara looked uneasy. "Captain, this is no longer just about saving a life. That transmission, it feels like a threat, and it's personal." Elias nodded, but he felt no fear, only resolve. "Then I will face it. I will not abandon Sci-Fi. We don't leave those in need behind, no matter who they are." The next days were tense. The transmission continued, sending subtle warnings and sometimes visions that Elias could not explain. The hatchling reacted too, chirping nervously whenever the alien patterns flared in the hologram. Elias realized the bond between them ran deeper than he had thought. It was as if Yizai could feel the Queen's awareness, like it carried a part of her mind. Still, life aboard the station pressed on. Elias trained with his team, conducted patrols, and maintained the delicate balance between his duties as a soldier and his personal commitment to the hatchling. Yet each night the dreams returned. The towering, luminous figure of the Zarathi Queen loomed over him, her countless eyes seeming to penetrate every thought. "You saved my child," the psychic voice in his dreams said, calm yet full of authority, "and for that your fate is intertwined with mine. You cannot leave." Elias woke in a sweat, unsure whether it had been a dream or a warning. The hatchling chirped from its pod, its tiny body restless. Elias felt a shiver of understanding. The Queen's awareness was no longer abstract, it was real. Then came the orders from command. Elias's mission schedule was abruptly changed. He was to return to Zithra Prime to investigate unusual activity. Reports suggested a massive movement of Zarathi troops, yet the planet remained strangely unengaged. Sensors picked up no direct attacks, only the quiet buildup of forces. Elias knew this was no coincidence. The Queen was watching him, testing him, and perhaps she was sending a message: return or face consequences beyond human understanding. Against protocol, Elias began preparations for a covert mission. Mara approached him one evening as he packed. "Captain, this is risky," she warned. "We have orders, yes, but this is something else. You're going into the heart of their territory with no backup. What if they attack?" Elias looked at Sci, who now followed him around the quarters with surprising agility. The hatchling chirped and extended a tiny claw, almost as if encouraging him. He smiled faintly. "I have to do this, Mara. I can't just leave it, not now. Not ever." Mara hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Then we go together. But we stay alert, and we don't underestimate the Queen." The journey to Zithra Prime was tense. The shuttle slipped through asteroid belts and past sensor arrays, avoiding detection as best as possible. Elias kept checking on Yizai, who remained quiet for most of the trip, curled against a soft pad in the shuttle, but occasionally its eyes would flick toward Elias, emitting soft chirps as if communicating without words. Finally, the shuttle descended into the dense forests of Zithra Prime. The landscape was even more surreal than Elias remembered. Towering, bioluminescent trees, rivers of liquid light, and the hum of life that was unlike anything on human worlds. They landed in a clearing near the site where Elias had first saved Xi. The forest was silent. "Too silent. Stay sharp," Elias whispered. "Something doesn't feel right." Suddenly, movement. Shadows shifted in the trees faster than the eye could follow. The Zarathi were watching. Then a horde of creatures emerged, but not in attack formation. They surrounded the shuttle, observing. Their red eyes glowed and their mandibles clicked softly. It was a display of control and restraint. Elias felt a chill. They were aware, but patient, calculating. From the shadows, the hatchling stirred and chirped. Its tiny form seemed to respond to the larger Zarathi presence. Elias realized then that Z was not only aware of the Queen's attention, it was connected to it. The psychic presence hit him suddenly, a wave of awareness that made his vision blur. A voice, commanding, ancient, and filled with both curiosity and warning, resonated in his mind. "You have returned. The child is safe, but you belong to me now." Elias staggered but forced himself to stand tall. "I am not yours," he replied mentally, though the words felt strange coming from him. "I protect life, not property, and I will not serve under threats." The forest seemed to tremble at his defiance. Yet the Queen did not attack. Instead, a single Zarathi warrior stepped forward unarmed and bowed slightly, a gesture of recognition Elias had never expected from such a fierce species. Why spare me?" Elias whispered aloud, clutching Sci. The warrior tilted its head. Through a series of gestures and psychic impressions, Elias understood. The Queen did not intend immediate harm. She sought loyalty, not fear. She sought understanding of this human who acted differently than any enemy she had ever faced. Elias's mind raced. He now realized that the consequences of saving the hatchling were far larger than he had imagined. The Queen's interest was not casual, it was personal. Every decision, every step he took from now on would be watched and weighed. "Captain?" Mara said softly, breaking his reverie. What do we do now? Do we return? Elias shook his head. No, we stay, we learn, and we survive. XY is counting on us, and somehow I think the Queen wants to see what we're capable of. They set up a temporary camp near the clearing, careful to remain hidden, yet close enough to observe. Elias kept watch over Ixie, who chirped contentedly as he sat beside the small fire they had managed to ignite. But beneath the quiet, tension rippled like a hidden current. Every rustle in the trees, every whisper of movement, reminded Elias that the Queen's presence was never far away. That night, as he sat beside Sai, Elias felt it again. The psychic pull, subtle but insistent. The Queen was close, her awareness brushing against the edges of his consciousness. He could almost see her in the shadows of the forest, watching, waiting, and testing. He understood one undeniable truth. His decision to save the hatchling had changed everything. The Queen would not forget. The Zarathi would not forgive. And his life, and perhaps the life of all humanity, might soon depend on the courage, intelligence, and compassion he had shown in a single act of mercy. As sleep claimed him briefly, Elias held Sai close and whispered, "We'll face it together, whatever comes." The forest remained silent, but the air thrummed with unseen eyes and quiet intelligence. The hunt had begun, but it was not a hunt for death. It was a test, one that Elias and the hatchling could not afford to fail. The forest of Zithira Prime seemed alive in ways that Elias could not fully understand. Even with the canopy above shielding most of the bioluminescent light, the shadows seemed to move with a life of their own. Every rustle, every glimmer of reflection made him tense. Beside him, the hatchling, Aziz, was unusually still. Its glowing eyes followed the shadows with uncanny awareness, as if it sensed what Elias could not. Elias had learned to trust the child's instincts. Suddenly the air shifted. A hum of energy filled the forest, resonating in Elias's chest. It was not sound in the usual sense, it was a presence, a pressure, a psychic awareness that demanded attention. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. "They're here," he whispered to Mara, who was crouched beside him scanning the tree line. "The Queen!" "I can feel her." Mara's eyes widened. "Are you sure? How can you—" "I don't know," Elias admitted. "But it's different this time. She's aware, watching, judging." Then she appeared. The Zarathi Queen emerged from the forest like a living vision. Towering and luminous, her body glowed with a soft internal light, and her countless eyes, each unique in shape and color, scanned Elias with precision that seemed to pierce his very soul. The forest bent around her presence, and every living creature went silent. Elias instinctively stepped in front of Exi, shielding the hatchling with his body. The Queen paused, tilting her head as though examining him. Then, without a word, a voice filled his mind, not spoken aloud but direct, unyielding, and undeniable. "You saved my child. Against all rules. Against the law of our kind. Explain yourself." Elias swallowed hard, feeling the psychic weight of her gaze. I could not let it die. It was defenseless. It had no choice, no chance to survive without me." The Queen's presence pressed closer like an invisible tide. "Do you understand what you have done? Saving the offspring of our enemies is unthinkable. You have broken laws that govern life itself in my species." "I understand," Elias replied steadily, "but I did not do it for law or duty. I did it because it was right. Life should be protected, not destroyed, even if it belongs to an enemy." A pause stretched through the psychic space. Elias could feel her analyzing him, testing him, searching for weaknesses. Then, unexpectedly, there was curiosity. "Your words are not like the others. Humans, you are not entirely predictable. You act with choice rather than instinct." "Fascinating." Elias exhaled slowly, though his muscles remained tense. "I am human. That is what we do. We choose. We protect." The Queen's many eyes focused more sharply. Her presence pressed upon him again, but now there was no immediate threat. Instead, she revealed a larger vision in his mind. A swirling image of the galaxy, of stars and ships, and a massive predator moving between systems, consuming everything in its path. The creature's destruction was indiscriminate, obliterating both Zarathi and human colonies. "There is a force coming," the Queen projected, "a predator that neither of our kinds can face alone. You, human, may yet serve a purpose." Elias' mind reeled. "You want me to help you fight it?" Not as a servant, she corrected. As one bound to my law. You have saved my child. That bond cannot be broken. You owe it to me. As I owe it to you, Elias' eyes narrowed. You're saying I can't leave? That I belong to you because I saved your hatchling? Precisely. And yet, her voice softened slightly, your courage, your choice is intriguing. Perhaps your kind can be more than mere prey, perhaps allies. Elias felt the weight of the Queen's psychic presence, immense and unyielding, yet not cruel. It was a strange mix of awe and fear, respect and warning. He realized that resistance would be dangerous, but compliance without understanding was unthinkable. I don't belong to anyone, he said quietly, but I will protect life. That is my choice. I will help fight your predator, if it also saves my people, my team, and this hatchling. But I do not serve. The Queen's attention seemed to flicker as though impressed by his defiance. Very well, human. You may act. But remember, your freedom is not granted by your courage alone. It is bound by law, by honor, and by your actions. Fail, and the cost will be greater than you can imagine. Elias nodded, absorbing the gravity of her words. This was no longer a simple mission. He had stepped into an entirely new order of existence, where human morality clashed with alien law, where every choice could shift the balance of life and death across worlds. The Queen stepped back, and the forest seemed to exhale. The Zarathi warriors, who had watched silently, now lowered their heads in deference. One of them approached, bowing to Elias with a gesture of respect unusual for a species known for aggression. Elias understood. The Queen's judgment had extended to him. Mara, standing behind him, whispered, Captain. What now? We survive, Elias replied, keeping his voice calm. We learn. We prepare. That creature, the predator she showed us, we have no choice but to work together. But I do this my way, not hers. Ixie chirped softly, stepping closer to Elias. The bond between them was now more evident than ever. The hatchling's tiny psychic presence brushed against him in quiet reassurance. It understood the Queen's intentions, and it seemed ready to follow Elias wherever he led. Over the next days, Elias studied the forest and the movements of the Zarathi. He noticed subtle signs of the Queen's attention, trees that seemed to bend slightly as she passed, animals frozen in stillness when he moved, and the hatchling reacting to unseen pressures in the air. He realized that the Queen's observation was constant, yet she did not intervene unnecessarily. She was testing, waiting, and gauging his reactions. During a brief conversation with Mara, he said, She doesn't see me as a simple enemy, or even a prisoner. She's curious. But curiosity in a species like this is dangerous. If I misstep... He trailed off, knowing the consequences could be catastrophic. Mara placed a hand on his shoulder. You're good at thinking under pressure. We've survived worse, haven't we? Elias smiled faintly. We have, but this is different. This is more than survival. This is about understanding, bridging worlds, and proving something about humanity that might save us all. That evening, Elias returned to the small camp they had established. He sat beside Xi, who rested in a soft patch of moss. He reached out and touched its glowing head gently. You're safe for now, he whispered. And I promise I'll keep you safe. No matter what she says, no matter what comes. The hatchling chirped softly, curling closer to him. Elias felt a strange warmth. A bond that was more than instinct. Xi was more than a creature. She was a symbol of hope. Proof that even in a universe filled with enemies, life could be protected and nurtured. As night fell, Elias thought about the Queen and her warning. He knew that the coming days would test him in ways he could not yet imagine. He would have to navigate the delicate balance of trust and defiance, courage and caution, human morality and alien law. And in the back of his mind, one truth remained clear. The choice he had made to protect the hatchling had changed everything. The Queen would not forget. The Zarathi would watch. And the universe itself might soon demand proof that humanity was more than just a fragile species. Proof that humans could be heroes, even in the face of incomprehensible power. Elias's eyes scanned the glowing horizon of Zethera Prime. The forest was quiet, but the air vibrated with unseen awareness. Somewhere in the darkness, the Queen watched, patient and unyielding, testing the human who had dared to defy her laws in the name of compassion. And Elias understood, fully and finally, that from this moment forward, nothing would ever be the same. The bond with Xi, the attention of the Queen, and the threat looming over the galaxy, all were intertwined. He tightened his grip on the hatchling and whispered once more, "We'll face whatever comes. Together." The forest remained silent, but the night thrummed with anticipation. The Queen's gaze lingered, unseen yet undeniable, and the test had only just begun. Days turned into weeks. Elias and the Zarathi trained, recovered, and prepared for whatever came next. The cosmic predator had retreated, but its shadow loomed in their minds. Both humans and Zarathi knew it would return, stronger and more relentless. The Queen remained nearby, her presence subtle yet unyielding. She watched Elias closely, sometimes appearing directly, sometimes sending psychic impressions through Xi. Elias had learned to interpret her thoughts. Caution, curiosity, and occasionally a grudging respect. Elias could feel the weight of her judgment. She had the power to claim him completely, yet she chose restraint. It was a gift and a responsibility. During one quiet night, as the stars shimmered above Zithera Prime, the Queen appeared fully. Elias stood with Z at his side, watching the magnificent alien figure. She radiated authority, intelligence, and a strange sense of purpose. "Captain Elias Ward," she projected into his mind, "you have acted with courage, wisdom, and compassion. You have honored the bond between us, yet your path is not yet complete. Will you continue to stand against threats that endanger all life, even if it means defying your own kind?" Elias swallowed. "Yes, I will fight to protect life regardless of species or origin. That is my choice." "Then your freedom is yours," she replied. "You may return to your kind, but know this, our bond endures. The hatchling you saved, it carries part of my essence. It will always be linked to you, and I will always watch." Elias felt relief and pride, yet also a deep sense of responsibility. Freedom was granted, but the weight of choices, alliances, and future threats remained. He nodded respectfully. "I understand, and I accept it." With that, the Queen withdrew, leaving Elias and Zui under the starlit canopy of Zithera Prime. Mara stepped beside him, her expression a mixture of relief and admiration. "You did it, Captain," she said softly. "You earned it." Elias smiled faintly, glancing at Xi, who chirped and extended a small claw toward him, a gesture of trust and affection. "We did it together," he said. "All of us." The journey back to the human fleet was quieter this time. Elias reflected on the trials they had faced, the moral choice to protect the hatchling, the tense alliance with the Zarathi, and the battle against the cosmic predator. Every decision had mattered, and every act of courage had shaped a new possibility for the galaxy. Upon arrival, the human commanders were cautious but impressed. Elias's reports highlighted the successful alliance, the new strategies, and the undeniable proof that humans could rise to challenges far beyond conventional warfare. But Elias' thoughts were not on accolades. They were on Xi, on the bond that had formed, and on the knowledge that courage and compassion could bridge even the widest divides between species. He looked up at the stars, feeling the lingering presence of the Queen. It was not threatening, but it was a reminder of a promise. The universe was vast, full of dangers and wonders, and humanity had the capacity to face them, not through domination, but through courage, intelligence, and heart. Elias knelt beside Sai and whispered, "We'll face whatever comes next, together." The hatchling chirped, nuzzling him. In that small gesture, Elias saw hope, a hope that even in a galaxy filled with enemies, trust, compassion, and bravery could create allies, reshape destinies, and ensure that humanity had a place among the stars. And so, with the cosmic predator delayed, the Zarathi Queen's silent watch over them, and the bond between human and alien strengthened, Elias understood the greatest truth of all. Heroism was not measured by power or weapons, but by the courage to protect life even when no one demanded it, and even when the universe itself seemed against you. The story of Captain Elias Ward, of XY, and of the first human Zarathi alliance had only just begun, but the legacy of their choices would echo across the stars for generations to come. The forest of Zithera Prime had grown familiar to Elias, yet it never lost its sense of danger. Every shadow seemed alive, every rustle held potential threat. The Queen's presence hovered invisibly, always observing, always weighing his choices. Elias and Mara moved cautiously, with C at their side. The hatchling had grown stronger and more intelligent, its movements fluid and deliberate. Yet its psychic link to the Queen made Elias wary. Every time Exie reacted to something unseen, he could feel the tension ripple through the forest. The real danger, however, was not the Queen or her warriors. It was the cosmic predator. The Queen had shown Elias visions of it, a massive, interstellar creature capable of consuming entire fleets and obliterating colonies. It moved silently, unstoppable, and neither humans nor Zarathi could face it alone. Elias knew the task ahead was impossible without trust between their species. And yet trust was fragile. One misstep could mean the death of his team, or the complete annihilation of both species. "Captain," Mara whispered as they observed a group of Zarathi soldiers training nearby. "Do you think they'll accept your guidance?" "Training them in human tactics. It's risky." Elias nodded slowly. "It has to work." "We have no choice. If we fail to coordinate, we all die. I just hope they can learn fast enough." The first day of training was tense. Elias instructed the Zarathi warriors in human combat techniques, including small unit tactics, ambush strategies, and coordinated defense maneuvers. The Zarathi were physically superior, but their rigid hive mind approach made independent thinking difficult. HFY chirped from a nearby ledge, watching. Elias realized the hatchling was learning too, absorbing both human and Zarathi behaviors. It was adapting rapidly, an unexpected advantage that could become crucial. The warriors observed, some skeptical, others attentive. Elias's voice cut through the air. "You're stronger than I am, faster, smarter. But strength alone is not enough. If we work together, using our minds as well as our bodies, we can survive." A senior Zarathi commander tilted its head, mandibles clicking in a rhythm that seemed almost contemplative. Through a psychic impression, Elias sensed approval, though cautious. They would try because the Queen demanded it. Days passed and a fragile trust began to form. Elias observed subtle changes. The Zarathi listened more, questioned less aggressively, and even allowed moments of improvisation. HFY imitated both human gestures and Zarathi movements, bridging the gap between the species in small, meaningful ways. Then came the first sighting of the predator. A distant streak of darkness, enormous and terrifying, tore across the atmosphere of Zithira Prime. The forest trembled under its gravitational pull, birds and alien creatures scattered in panic. Elias felt a chill in his chest. This was bigger than anything he had ever faced. "Prepare," he shouted. "Positions. Use what we've trained." The Zarathi warriors moved with uncanny coordination, their physical prowess combined with the strategies Elias had taught. Mara fired precise energy shots targeting the predator's sensory organs. HFY darted forward, startling the predator momentarily with a psychic pulse, a defensive instinct the hatchling had developed naturally. The battle was chaotic. Energy blasts lit the forest, trees splintered, and the ground shook with every strike of the predator. Yet humans and Zarathi fought as one. Elias' tactics were working. For the first time, he saw his species' ingenuity complement alien strength in a way that felt unstoppable. Hours passed. The predator, realizing it was not an easy target, retreated temporarily into the skies. The forest was scorched, but Elias's alliance had survived. The Zarathi commander approached, nodding. Elias understood. The Queen's confidence in him had grown. That night, around the small campfire, C curled near Elias's feet. Mara looked at him thoughtfully. "Captain, you did it. You taught them something they didn't have before." "You made a difference," Elias smiled faintly. "Not just me. HFY helped too. We're all learning from each other. And this is only the beginning. That predator, it's out there and it will return. We need to be ready." In the following days, humans and Zarathi continued training and preparing. The Queen's presence remained constant, sometimes observing directly through her warriors, sometimes in subtle psychic nudges. Elias learned to interpret her intentions, reading the pauses, the shifts in attention, and the moments of silence. Finally, the predator returned. Its approach was faster, more deliberate, and it was clear it had learned from its previous encounter. The alliance was tested under extreme conditions. Energy shields flickered under its attacks and the ground cracked beneath its weight. Elias led the coordinated defense, moving with the Zarathi and Mara as they executed combined strategies. HFY darted around the battlefield, disrupting the Predator's attacks with sudden psychic pulses. Slowly, painfully, they began to push the Predator back. In a final, desperate maneuver, Elias coordinated a trap. Humans and Zarathi lured the Predator into a canyon, where energy nets and psychic interference immobilized it temporarily. The creature roared, a sound that rattled bones, but the Alliance held. Finally, it retreated into space, its threat delayed but not eliminated. Elias breathed heavily, surveying the damage. Trees lay broken. The ground was scorched, yet life, both human and Zarathi, had survived. The Zarathi commander approached, clicking softly. Elias sensed approval again, but this time it was deeper. The Queen's presence lingered in the air, almost tangible in the quiet. She did not speak, but Elias knew she recognized what had been accomplished. Humans and Zarathi could work together. Humanity could rise to the challenge, not by force alone, but by courage, intelligence, and compassion. That night, as Elias sat with Xi, he realized something profound. The choice he had made to protect the hatchling had created this possibility. A bond of trust had formed across species, and through that bond, humanity had earned a chance to prove its worth in the universe. The Queen's silent presence was both a warning and a promise. Elias had passed the first test, but the galaxy was far from safe. The Predator remained lurking in the void, and the Queen's attention would continue to shape his destiny, as human courage faced challenges no one could yet imagine.